So James, you had to cope with us being away for a week in the busiest month of the year.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us a quick rundown of what the week's been like?
Cool. Okay, so I started off on Saturday evening. I had a course on the Sunday, so basically I spend the evening before the day of a course preparing everything, making sure that when I roll in at 7:30 in the morning pre-coffee, I don't have to do any organising, because I know myself well enough to know it's not going to go particularly well. So what I'll do is I spend the evening before, I prepare the kit bags according to the sizes that I'm giving. I'll fill the cylinders. I will basically make sure that the schedules are all in order. Everyone knows how they're getting to the site and that everything's set, ready to go. Then on Sunday morning, as I said, I sort of roll in at about 7:30, coffee in hand, load the van up. Basically, the first thing I do is make the... excuse me one moment. So that was a guy on the phone after a Sunto dive computer. So again, that's just part of what I do on a daily basis. So yeah, Sunday mornings coming at 7:30, and I open the front door and then make the mad dash to turn off the alarm so I don't wake up the neighbours. Got to try and keep the relations with the street pretty good. Load up the van, and I'm usually on the road by sort of 8 to 8:30, arriving at the dive site for sort of 9 o'clock, 9:30 depending on traffic. Do the diving day, which is always pretty good fun, always pretty varied. For example, last Sunday I had both dry suit and open water, which means that each dive I do is pretty different. And because the guys in the dry suit course are dive masters, but the open water student was obviously open water, I've got to try and kind of balance the way I am with diving and the way I do things to sort of keep both experienced and kind of new divers happy. And that's kind of a real kind of interesting balance to be able to sort of to make sure that they both return. Monday was a day off, so that was very nice, and to go see my parents. And then basically I've then spent this week preparing for this weekend, which is pretty hectic. We've got the Weymouth trip happening, which is really exciting, and the weather's looking amazing. I really wish the guys have a good time on that. And also we've got a really busy pool weekend. We've got 4 open water students, some dry suit orientations, DSDs, scuba reviews, and a one-to-one open water. So that's pretty much my week.
Cool. Okay, so what did you find particularly tricky about the week that maybe you didn't think you would, or anything unusual happen?
Well, basically, whenever you get a busy weekend, it's always kind of a juggling act anyway. You end up spending kind of one hand on the mouse, ear on your phone, whilst trying to eat lunch at the same time. Basically, got kind of a lot of plates to juggle. For example, with Weymouth, the B&B likes to know what's going on, the dive centre likes to know what's going on, each individual person on the trip likes to know what's going on. People have equipment requirements, weather forecasts, and so there's a lot of things that you've got to juggle on a regular basis, and it's a daily thing. And also with the pool weekends, making sure that everyone's got their medicals, everyone's got their course materials, everyone's done their homework, making sure that the pool are expecting us, making sure the cylinder's prepared, and so I guess the tricky thing is just making sure that trying to juggle lots of things at the same time, making sure you don't forget anything. Forget the smallest thing and the whole weekend falls apart. So yeah,
okay.
I'm sure you can attest to.
Well, yeah, no, it's just nice to for you to have experienced it as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so that was just the last person on the phone there booking off the Egypt trip, which means it's now a full boat.
Yay!
It's just coming up, just over 6 months left to go, and we've filled the entire trip. So
Woohoo!
Cool.
Woohoo! Yeah.
It does kind of bode well, because it might mean that we might do another one if it's that popular. You never know.
Never know.
Yeah, we've got guests.
Oh, one sec.
Okay, so we're now down in the Deco Lounge because we don't want to disturb Alex. The guy that just walked in a minute ago, that's Richard, and him and the other guy, Richard, are doing Tech 40 this weekend. So they're off gallivanting with Alex and Chepstow. Really exciting because it's we're really getting into the tech stuff now. The guys are off to Weymouth. They're going to be leaving in the next couple of hours, and the weekend's all prepped for the pool. So it's going to be pretty exciting stuff.
Cool. So, as a dive instructor, could you sum it up for us in 3 words? What it's like to be a dive instructor?
Can I explain each word?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's busy, especially here in the UK. It's busy is my first word because it's even though it's not a kind of what people would associate as a big diving kind of destination. We're in a big city where people want to dive, so the industry is busy and it's dynamic, and as a result, it's the same for me. So it's not only being in the water and teaching, but it's preparing for every weekend. The 4 days that we spend preparing for each weekend is merely kind of the calm before the storm for when the actual weekend hits and it all goes crazy. And hopefully, if you put all the right steps into place in the week leading up to it, it makes for a really smooth weekend. Any kind of anything you miss in that week or anything that doesn't get set up properly can really kind of add to the stress levels. So that's busy, varied, because as I said it before, it can be anything from teaching open water in Raisbury to guiding dives on the M2 in Weymouth to going to Malta or answering phones, doing emails, trying to prepare a brochure to hand out in schools, going to events, doing club nights, writing the newsletter. So it literally is kind of every day is a little bit different. And I know people say that for every job, but it really is sort of the case. And then the third word is it's a tough one now. Got so many words, only one left to choose. I'll go for interesting. The thing about diving is the fact that, and this is a point I always try and put across to sort of students, is the actual act of diving, physically breathing underwater, is like simply the medium. It's not a sport in itself. The sport is what you then do with the skills that you're given as a diver. So when the phone rings and I pick it up, it could be absolutely anything. It could be simply a case of someone wants to come in and just buy a cheap mask and snorkel for a holiday to Corfu, or it could be someone interested in doing deep dive specialty and they kind of expect you to know the course inside out. It could be someone looking to know where they can get their abstract dive computer that no one's ever heard of serviced. So you kind of have this, you build up a wealth of knowledge of as many areas as possible so that you can kind of speak with a degree of ability when you're sort of speaking to people on the phone, and that they trust your opinion. So it literally can be anything. So knowledge and everything has to be literally spot on, but it comes as part of the job. So
cool.
Interesting is the third word.
No, good word.
You have to be good at making coffee as well.
Yes. Where's my cup of tea, by the way?
I think Alex neglected to make you one.
Right. If you could say what is your... And obviously it's a bit hard because it's me interviewing you, but what's the worst bit of the job?
That's actually not a difficult question to answer. The worst bit is, the thing with diving is there's so many variables that can go into making a good or a bad experience. And it's one of those things that some are in your control and some are not. So I think the worst thing for us is, take for example a trip. The last Weymouth trip is a perfect example. Between sort of Jen and Alex, and I guess to a certain extent myself as well, the hours and hours and hours of preparation that went into that trip. The phone calls, the emails to B&Bs, to the dive centres, to calling regarding weather, preparing equipment, making sure everyone's got lifts, it's all sorted. It's the day before we go and the weather turns bad. And to see literally your hard work literally fall apart on this weekend is pretty it's gutting, because although no one blames us, you feel like there's a degree of responsibility that we have to ensuring people have a good time, and you've done everything in your power to make it work, and it fails. Yeah. And that for me is the most difficult thing. People do this as a hobby, and it's not a cheap hobby to do, and to sort of see a trip which doesn't work is kind of hard. But it's a small price to pay for doing something you like doing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of balanced really nicely for when a trip goes absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which actually more often than not it does. And I want to see a trip that goes absolutely perfectly, see new faces, and then the next club night they're there showing the rest of the club the photos that they took on that trip and everyone's had a great time. That's what makes the job. Cool.
Cool. Thank you. It's your birthday tomorrow, isn't it?
Woo-hoo! Yeah. Gonna be old.
Yeah, how old?
24.
And
start writing my will.
Do you get any presents anymore, or are you too old?
I don't think I've had presents for about 4 years now.
Aww.
Yeah,
I might have a present.
Woohoo!
Right, let's see if that works.
Yes.
So, if you could sum up what being a dive master is like in 3 words.
Dive master.
Oh, dive instructor. I think it's because we were talking about dive master anyway. But yeah, let me start that again.